Okay, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. Uh, so today we are going to continue on our lecture. So today we are going to look at into the next phase of the Malaysian valuation standard, which is we are going to look at the standard number five. eh. So this is the valuation base for other value other than market value. So as we know, the most important value that we use is usually the market value, but sometimes because of other conditions or prerequisites, we can't use the market value. So the Malaysian Relation Standard in Standard 5 clearly addresses this, whereby under introduction 5.11 states that majority of professional valuation, particularly valuation referred to MBS 3, involve market value. However, other than that, there is a call for a base or a premise value other than market value. So whereby it will have their applications towards the valuation that we are going to conduct. Okay, so 5.12 states that it is a base of value. So therefore, this will describe the fundamental premise on which the reported values will be based, and it is critical that the basis of value be appropriate to the terms and purpose of the valuation assignment as a basis of value may influence or dictate a value selection methods, inputs and assumptions, and the ultimate opinion of value. Okay, so the purpose that we conduct this other basis of value is that we are needed by law, by statute, by regulation, by private contract or other documents. If that particular contract states that we are going to find out regarding the fire insurance value, so we need to find out the fire insurance value and not the current market value. So other than that, if we look into the other parts of the standard, the explanations being given. So what 5.3.1, properties may be valued on basis or premises of value other than market value, or may exchange hands at prices which do not reflect market value as defined. So this may either be reflections of a non-market perspective or utility, or of unusual and non-market conditions. It can be related towards the types of property that is being transacted, or type of property being valued itself. So that particular property may not have the ability to be brought forward into the market, and like you are trying to value a special property like a government building and like a public school. So that particular property may not have the ability to be brought into the open market to be valued as the normal property, as the normal property. Okay, so we need to look into the types of valuation being used for other base of value, whereby the number one under 5.3.2 subsection A, it says that we need to find out what is the assessed rateable or taxable value. So this is the actual basis for value that is being used by the local authorities. So in order to determine what is the needed quit rent, or even the assessment rate that is being charged towards property owners, and so we need to find out. So therefore, the base is not a market value itself, but it's just the taxable value. Okay. Other than that is the fair value price that would be received to sell an asset or paid to transfer liability in an orderly transaction between market participants at the measurement date. So when measuring fair value, an entity uses the assumptions that market participants would use when pricing the asset or liability under current market conditions, including assumptions about risk. And the definition of fair value emphasizes that fair value is a market-based measurement. So this is usually being used, especially in towards corporate companies merger and acquisition, corporate companies actions to be listed into the public boards, public share boards, like in Kuala Lumpur Stock Exchange. So if somebody is trying to take over that particular company, so they need to have the ability to um, obtain all of the liability, and the meaning all of the debts, all of the assets, all of the financial standings and everything inside that particular company, so that they can be transferred towards their own ownership, or their parent company's ownership. Okay. Other than that, according to fair market value, also have under the definition of U.S. Internal Revenue Service, is the price at which the asset or liability will change hands between a willing buyer and a willing seller, when the former is not under any compulsion to buy and the latter is not under any compulsion to sell, and both parties having reasonable knowledge of relevant facts. So under US Internal Revenue Services definition also is being included in Malaysian valuation standard. So this is to provide the most thorough explanation for basis of value other than market value. Insurable value, like I said before, if you are trying to find out what is the value of an asset, like people having assets that needs to be insured, like their property, like their automobiles, or even precious gems, like diamonds, or uh, precious metals like gold, whereby these precious things are needed to be covered by insurance if anything happens to them, like uh, is being lost in fire, like it's being stolen, or even it's being demolished, or being broken down under whatever circumstances that is stated inside the contract or even the policy. Intrinsic value, investment value or worth, liquidation value, marriage or synergistic value, so value in use. So there is a uh, an overall number of bases of value that we can use other than market value. So but nonetheless, using the market value is the most important thing. But if we don't have any choices, then of course we have to look into these other kinds of basis of value. But as a registered valuer, or even the practicing valuer in Malaysia, we must adhere towards the uh, definitions being given by the Board of Valuers under Malaysian Valuation Standard. Okay, so other than that is the premise of value or assumed use other than market value. Commonly used in valuations include the following: current or existing use value. For sale value involves a price which arises from disposition under extraordinary atypical circumstances. Going concern value is the value of a business as a whole, meaning the whole business and continuing business entity, from which allocations or aforementioned of overall going concern value may be made to constitute parts as they contribute to the whole, but none of the components in themselves constitute the basis for market value. So there is a lot that you can go in depth, but of course we are having the time constraint, so we are going to look at in just an overview of this standard 5 of the NVS. Nonetheless, highest and best use is the use that will produce the highest value for an asset, liability, or a group of asset and or liabilities, regardless of the actual current use. So this is actually one of the most utilized, especially if you have development potential, and like a particular land that is under the land use of agriculture but is already being zoned for conversion into zoning. So that shows that this particular piece of land, although it is an agriculture land, but the zoning itself is already being zoned as commercial. So therefore, it has the potential to be valued as the commercial land. As a valuer, you must have the ability to find out under the concept of highest and best use. Let's say the market value before this is just 12 or 15 ringgit per square feet, but because it's already being zoned for commercial, the market value can be quadruple, 80, 90, 100 ringgit per square feet. So as a valuer, you must be able to foresee this ability of the land for conversion, and also the possibility of it generating a much higher value than just the present, and than just the present condition of the land itself. Okay, so highest and best use, I think, is one of the most utilized basis of value that is being employed in our profession, rather than just the market value itself. Okay, so that's regarding standard 5. So we are going to look at the standard 6. So standard 6, we are going to look at the inspection and investigation. Okay, so this is actually one of the most common practices that we are going to conduct. If we are going to be servicing as a valuer. So as a valuer, you must have the ability to conduct inspection and also investigation. And term inspection itself is that we inspect the land, we inspect the building, and we inspect anything that is being attached towards the land, so it becomes part of the property, and then we must have the ability to inspect the surrounding areas also, the comparables, the surrounding development, the surrounding neighborhood, the facilities, the amenities, and everything. So, as valuers, we are actually the investigators, being appointed by our client, whether the client is a financial institution like banks, like insurance companies or whatsoever. So we must go on site and find out what is really going on with the property, and then what is the current condition of the property. So if the building is in a good condition or not, if the building is in fair condition or even in a poor condition. So this is actually the bread and butter of our work. So in 1 week, we might need to go out from the office at least 2 or 3 times for inspection and also investigation. Okay, so the introduction, proper inspection and investigation of the asset or property is fundamental towards the valuation process, and valuers are expected to carry out an adequate inspection and referencing of the asset or the property which is to be valued, collecting and collecting all relevant data about the asset or property to enable them to arrive at a reasoned valuation. So this is clearly stated in the MVS, whereby an adequate inspection, you must have the required information. When you went on the site, you went to gather information. So our work might not be like the whole inspection or measurement like land survey did, whereby they bring all their theodolites and their staff and their measurement devices, that is very fine tailored to measure that particular piece of land or even the property. But as a valuer, we are general practitioners. Under RSM, we are GPs, general practitioners, whereby we are not only expected to carry out measurement of the building or even the land, but we need to find out or investigate regarding the surrounding areas, the comparables, the neighborhood, the amenities, and also facilities, and any other factors that might affect the overall outcome of the valuation. So for a land surveyor, they might not do that, and they might not do the inspection on the other developments, on other neighborhoods or everything. But as a valuer, you need to do all of this. So it's very important when for example, you went to Sri Iskandar, you went to a double-story terrace house in Bandar University. So you need to look all of the surrounding developments in Bandar University and also the overall township of Sri Iskandar itself. So this is important. So as a value, you must have the knowledge regarding that particular surrounding area, and then you must, if you don't have the knowledge, then of course it's very important for you to obtain all of the information from your own inspection and also the investigation. Okay. Other than that, statement of standard must state that the valuer or his designated assistant, whereby uh, the valuer is the registered valuer, and the designated assistant might be the valuation executive. So the valuer might not be the one who goes on the site, but his assistant, his or her assistant, will be the one that went down on site. But the assistant also is the same responsibility, must carry out proper inspection and referencing of the asset or the property to the extent necessary to produce a valuation which is professional, adequate, and not misleading. We must adhere towards this. So that the work that we conduct, even though we are strapped for time, we don't have the time. We have a lot of properties to be inspected, but every one of this valuation that we conduct must be towards the highest quality. So it's not misleading. Let's say you are trying to value a double-story terrace house in Sri Skandar, but you are referencing the property as in Batu Gajah. So you are telling about the surrounding developments or neighborhood in Batu Gajah, but not in Sri Skandar. So that particular piece of information that you disseminate and that you tell towards the readers, that is going to be misleading and is not very accurate. So we need the most accurate description of that particular inspection and also investigation that we have conducted. Okay, so the valuer is required to observe the following procedure. So this is the procedures that we need to do in carry out inspection, and it states under 6.22 subsection A, the valuer or his designated assistant must inspect and identify the asset or property by reference to survey sheets or to identifiable allocated boundary marks or to other available physical identification details such as the title number, the lot number, the mukim, the district, the state, and also the address. The postal address must be noted. So this is actually the way that we do the valuation report. So the survey sheets, the ones that is provided by JUPAM, the revenue survey sheets, we must find out the lots. Where is the lot located inside the survey sheet? And then afterwards, we must obtain the copy of the title search. So from the copy of the title search, we can no what is the title number, like GM213, the lot number 205, Mukim of Belanja, district of Kinta, state of Perak, and the address is number 62, Jalan Tronoh University, Tronoh, Taman Tronoh University, 31750 Perak. For example, that kind of information must be obtained. And for the postal address, usually we need to do an assessment search at the local authority. So you must find out what is the relevant local authority for that particular subject property. So if it is under the local authority of Batu Gajah, then you need to went to Batu Gajah and then obtain the assessment. So because you need to ascertain correctly the address, especially like I said before, like places that is in border areas, like in Selangor and also KL. Most notable is in Ampang, whereby they have this Ampang Jaya and also Ampang Kuala Lumpur. So the client may provide you with the information stating that, oh, my subject property is located in Ampang KL, whereby the actual title search, the actual assessment being produced shows that it's not actually in Kuala Lumpur, but it's actually located in Selangor. So we cannot take as blindly as the information just being given by our client, by the borrower or even by the buyer, we must ascertain that the information being given is correct and true. And if the information is incorrect, then that will affect our valuation, and of course will affect our professionalism. We can be deemed as unprofessional because we didn't find out properly uh, what is actual legality or even information that is true and genuine. So sometimes these people, they don't have any bad intentions, but because of their lack of knowledge, they just assume that their subject property is located in another place, whereas is located correctly at another state, like what's happening, like I said before, in KL and also Selangor. Other than that, border areas like in Penang and also Perak, like in the district of Krian, like in Kedah and also Perlis, nearby the district of Kodiang. So that places that have borders with the states, so that is you must be having the ability to define them properly. So therefore, referring to the survey sheets, referring to the uh, maps being provided by TUPAM is very important to us. Okay, so other than that, the valuer or designated assistant must identify and confirm inspection of the neighborhood, as said before. Inspection and investigation and inquiry will depend on the nature of the asset. Like you inquire from the relevant authorities, like you uh, try to find out the correct PA plan, Pelan Agui from Japan. You try to find out the assessment from the local authority. Then you get the title search from the land office, the relevant land office. Even the correct land office must also be ascertained. If it is Geran Mukim, is a Pajakan Mukim, then of course it's the district land office. But if it's just a Geran or even a Pajakan Negeri, then the land office involved will be the state land office, the PTG, Pejabat Tanah and Galian. Okay. While the valuer is not expected to undertake a structural survey to ascertain the adequacy of plant, machinery, equipment servicing the building, he is also required to draw attention to any visible major defects, which are obvious from visual inspection. Although we didn't measure uh, the whole building itself, but if we found out, we need to find out if there is any visible major defect, because this defect will have an effect towards the overall valuation that will be conducted afterwards. Okay. Other than that, inspection of the building, internal and also external inspection, needed to be detailed out, such as the accommodation, the building construction, the installation, the state of repair of the building, the amenities and also services. If you went to the subject property and then you find out there is a swimming pool that is being that is available outside of the property, then you need to find out whether this extension of the property is uh, being approved by the building department of the local authority or not. So if the construction or extension or additional amenities like swimming pool is available, but there is no approved building plans by the local authority, then we cannot take that into account of our valuation. So it's very important for us to find out the things that is available on the property and which that we can use to ascertain the valuation, and which we cannot use, because if we take the illegal items into the valuation, then if let's say the property needed to be auctioned off, or even brought into court, so uh, uh, this aspect on the legal aspect will be looked very thoroughly. So if you put in a higher value due to uh, you include those illegal extensions, those illegal additions of amenities, then of course our action will be considered unprofessional, and also we can be taken action by the board of value. So you must ensure that all of the extension, all of the renovations uh, having the approved building plans, so that we can report them inside the valuation report. So even if the valuer does not himself inspect the property, he must be familiar with the locality, the type of property, and the relevant market condition to enable him to satisfactorily verify his designated assistance inspection report finding. So this is actually applies towards a registered valuer, and whereby a registered valuer may not have the time or ability to inspect every subject property that the company is being tasked to, like having instruction of 3 to 400 instruction from the clients every month. So it may not be possible for him to conduct the inspection or investigation by himself, just one person and doing all of the 300 or 400 instruction. So therefore his assistant, and like the valuation executive or valuation assistants, so must conduct all the inspection and investigation. But the registered valuer himself must have the knowledge regarding that particular area. And like if a registered valuer is based in Ipoh, he have the knowledge regarding the surrounding area of the whole of state of Perak. He knows regarding Bagan Datuk, he knows regarding Sri Iskandar, he knows regarding Terono, he knows regarding Taiping. So if the assistant goes to these areas, so he can identify the neighborhood, he can identify the locality and everything. Okay, so other than that, valuers must use we already look at the document before, the uniform method of measurement building. So the board of valuer doesn't produce this measurement method, uniform method themselves, but we have the RSM. So the document provided by RSM is the go-to document for the guide to measure buildings. Okay, so properties outside Malaysia, valuers shall use the appropriate or applicable methods of measurement. So if the particular country, like let's say we went to Bangladesh, that particular country doesn't have any uniform method of measurement, then we can use and we can utilize the already established document that we have, which is under RSM. Then we can use that as it shows that it can be applied to the same situation. Okay. Valuation includes plant and machinery. This must be adequately described to give an accurate picture of the item being valued. Okay. Title detail or relevant title details. Any registered transaction of the property to be valued within the last 2 years of the valuation. Must disclose any assumption in relation to the title details where the title is not available. So this is already stated. If there is no title search available, let's say the property is still under master title, there is no individual title being alienated yet, or even being subdivided yet. So there is just a piece of a very big master title. So the valuer must disclose regarding this condition, and where do they use the relevant information. Usually, like in this situation, we will use the sale and purchase agreement document. So the SMP is very important, because at least the SMP have the legality. If being brought towards a court of law, then the SNP can be used. So let's say we get the provisional land area from the SNP, we get the provisional build up area also from the SNP. We just cannot assume that uh, the land area is something that we need to measure by ourselves. So we might not have the ability to conduct that particular thorough measurement. Just to do one particular valuation report, we have to conduct the whole land measurement itself. Then the fee must be much higher than the average valuation fee. So because it's going to be a lot of work to us. So any assumptions that we make in relation to title details must be included inside the valuation report, and the copy of the relevant documents, and like a copy of the SNP, the relevant pages. The relevant pages must be included. So that will be our source of information. So if anything happens, then at least we can say this is the evidence that we use to derive the information. And then this is where we have found out that the land area actually is 1,500 square feet and the build up area is 2,000 square feet. Okay, so that is very important. Okay. So, where a valuation is affected by express condition and restriction in use in the title, they must be clearly explained in the valuation report. This affects the terms and also the condition of the report. So, whereby we must state like this is just the valuation report is just for the purpose being stated in the valuation report. Like if you are doing for the purpose of financing, then this valuation report cannot be used for the purpose of land acquisition purposes or even insurance purposes. For you to conduct valuation for other purposes, so a fresh valuation report must be needed. So this is to protect our interests, whereby we give the professional opinion on the basis of financing, not for the basis of land acquisition, not for the basis of highest and best use, and not for the basis of development purposes. So this is the thing that we need to highlight in the term and condition. So if you are going to conduct a valuation report just for financing purposes, it's just for financing purposes. It's not going to be used for other purposes and not stated, then it's not going to be applicable. Okay. All right. So that is regarding standard 6. So now we are going to look at standard 7, whereby the approaches towards valuation. So in the world, we have the International Valuation Standard Council, as well as most major valuation standard setters in the world refer to just 3 approaches to value, namely the market approach, the income approach, and also the cost approach. This one is the methods. For market approach, or in Malaysia we call it, they put in the slash market or comparison approach towards value. Other subsets of income approach we can use investment method, residual method, profits method, and the discounted cash flow DCF method. So this is recognized by valuer and users of valuation in the past. Okay, so if we don't have the ability to use comparison or even market approach, then of course we can use all of the other approaches being stated here to derive the value that we are trying to find. Okay, so I don't think we need to go through little by little relating towards the approaches, because I think you have already gone through all of this in the last 3 or 4 years of the study. So this is actually just a refresher how we're going to conduct the valuation. So it just stated, so we need to follow the market approach, how going to be applied and afforded significant weight. Subject asset has recently been sold in a transaction appropriate for consideration under the basis value. The subject asset or property substantially similar asset are actively publicly traded, and or they are frequent or recent observable transactions of similar asset or properties. You can go through all of this. So this is actually a very thorough explanation under Malaysian valuation standard, whereby how we are going to use, how we are going to apply the comparison method. For each of the stated comparable that we are going to use for comparable, must have the information, lot number, title number, section, town, city, mukim, district, state, and also full address if available. The date of transaction, consideration for the transaction, brief description of the property, title, particular, tenure, land area, category of land use, express condition, reserve, like Malay Reserve or native land, the legal aspect and everything. Even the comparable itself must be as rigorous in information as the subject property, as subject properties title search. So this is to ensure that we have the ability to compare apple towards an apple. So if an apple, like an apple is a red apple, you try to find the most similar apple that is available to compare with. So that is the perfect analogy that we try to find. So if this particular red apple is rounded in shape, then the next comparable apple is a little oval in shape, then you have to conduct the adjustment to derive the same value. That a round apple is 1 ringgit per apple, then the oval shaped apple is 80 cents. So you might have to add 20%, 20% to get the same value, of the round apple, like the oval apple. So it's the same with property, it's the same with land. So we have to do the adjustment to cover up any weaknesses on the comparable land, cover up any defects, or even to decrease the advantages that the comparable land have. So you must try to adjust the comparable property as to the current or even the most similar condition that the subject property is situated or is available. So you must be as similar as possible with all of the adjustment. Okay, income approach. You can see, you can read through the income approach, residual approach, DCF approach, profits method. If you cannot get comparable, then like a special property of petrol stations or a quarry or a golf resort, something that is not being transacted very often, or even there is no comparable property at all. So other projected earnings must be calculated. The subject properties earnings, like cinema. Cinema is not being transacted very often, but during this pandemic might be transacted. If you have the transaction data for a cinema, then of course you must went for comparison method first, and then it's going to be much better for the valuation. But if there is no other alternative or even solution, then of course we need to resort towards the profits method. Okay, cost approach. So this is also similar with profit method, whereby it's being used towards specialized properties that have no transaction data. Like we're trying to find out the insurance value of a mosque. So where do you have the ability to find the transaction data for a mosque? Is there mosque mosque being sold everywhere. So I don't think mosque as a religious institution is going to be sold anywhere in the world. But nevertheless, we need to find out. We need to find out for insurance purposes. If anything happens towards the mosque, then the particular building and the particular reconstruction cost can be found out. So therefore, that's the reason that why we have these cost approaches. Other than mosques is like public schools, hospitals, airports, something that is not available in the open market. You can't just find, you can't just say to yourself, oh, I want to purchase an airport someday. I want to have an airport someday. So in other countries, there might be private airports, but especially in Malaysia, we don't have these particular private airports. Just airport strips or private airport strips, not private airstrip, sorry, not the whole airport. So usually in Malaysia, very big airports is owned by the government or even GLCs. So we need to find out also for other purposes, not just for market value, for insurance value, for highest and best value and everything. Okay. Other valuation approaches, reconciliation, record of valuation work. Uh, okay. All of this must be used properly and must be read through thoroughly. So therefore, we are not just doing something that is not being prescribed in the MVS. So this standard must be followed as it is the guideline towards us to conduct the evaluation properly. Okay. All right. So standard 8, we look into the valuation report and how you are going to conduct a valuation report. And actually, you already have a whole subject dedicated towards preparing a valuation report. But nonetheless, this is some of the content that you need to have inside the valuation report. Just an overview, the instruction to value, who instructed you to conduct the valuation report, like financial institution like Maybank. Maybank have given you the instruction to conduct a valuation report for financing purposes, for financing purpose on particular piece of land, on document title, lot number, and everything. So you must state clearly the purpose of valuation, for the purpose of financing, purpose of insurance, purpose of land acquisition. Valuation date, we must take from the date that the property is being inspected. However, if you didn't inspect the property physically, then the valuation date must be clearly stated. Like, let's say you are doing valuation on the rating purpose. So you didn't inspect the property physically, internally, but you inspect just roughly from the outside, and then just a glance through, then you must state clearly what is the valuation date. Inspection, like the date of the property inspected, also must include together the references of the inspection, the appendix, or even the photographs of the surrounding neighborhood, the subject property, the front view of the subject property, the internal view, the side view, or other kinds of photographs that can provide the necessary and also accurate information. Okay. Description of the property, tenancy list detail, planning detail, assumptions being used, the approaches or even the methods that we use. If you use comparison method, profit method, cost method, the evidence of value, where you get the evidence. According back to MVS 7, where you get the evidence from NAPIC, National Property Information Center, or you get from online transaction data from iProperty, Property Guru, or even you find out from other previous valuation, or even previous transaction data of the property itself. Okay, the opinion of value, the opinion of value, a clear and ambiguous statement of value. It's not something that is just for the sake of doing a valuation and doing deriving a value. The value itself must be very clear. If you state the value is 500,000 ringgit, then you must also state in lettering, like 5 FIVE, not just the numbering, just to give clear information towards the reader that this is the particular value that we have given opinion to. Okay, the plan, photograph, the name and signature of the value. This shows that the liability and the responsibility of the valuation report is under the registered valuer's responsibility, and the valuer's registration number with the board of valuer must also be stated, V1638. So this shows that this is a capable valuer that is registered with the board of valuer and is a certified professional. Okay. Standard 9 valuation based on assumptions, statement of detail, then carry out you must put this assumption. If any party wishes to rely on the valuation based on the additional assumptions as stated above, then appropriate professional advice should be sought, since the value reported is based on an assumption that is not yet or fully realized. So this is for properties that is still not completed, that is going to be completed afterwards. So we must provide the assumptions in the term and reference, the opinion of value. So therefore, if the property is not being ever completed, is an abandoned property afterwards, so therefore the valuer, the registered valuer, is not liable, because he or she assumes that this is property value that is going to be to happen after the property itself is completed. And then if the property is not completed, then this value cannot be derived. Let's say the shop house is abandoned, there is no door, there is no wall, there is no roof, then of course it's not going to be transacted to any other people. No other people is in their right mind is going to purchase that property like in open market value price. They maybe just want to purchase the property for the land and not without the building value. So this kind of assumption is very important to safeguard our interest. Okay. Other than that, valuation that differ from the actual fact. If any party wishes to rely on the valuation based on the assumption stated above, then appropriate professional advice should be sought, since the value reported is based on an assumption that is or are not reasonable and unlikely to be realized, and because they don't have the full information regarding the particular subject property, because the facts is not available, or the facts is being hidden, like you are doing a profit method valuation for a petrol station, but the petrol station owner or even the operator didn't disclose the whole information regarding their profit, regarding their cost, regarding their expenditure. So the valuer have to fill in as much information that is needed in the calculation with assumption. So therefore, it might not reflect the proper market value of the subject property of that particular petrol station. So that assumptions, you must cover your interest the same as above with this provision. Provision or the standard state is a proviso. Okay, as is value. Okay. Alright, so that is standard 9. So standard 10 is valuation for financial reporting. We have gone through this according to SSM, securities. Not SSM, Securities Commission Malaysia. Companies Commission Malaysia is the registration. Okay, for them. So you can read through all of this. It's very lengthy, but usually if we have any doubts or any items that needed to be referenced to MVS 10, so we can go to under this. Standard 11, biological asset like oil palm, rubber trees. So that is all considered part of the land because it's physically attached towards the land. If you have an oil palm plantation of 500 hectares, so you must also value the oil palm itself because it is part of the land under section 5 of the National Land Code 1960. It is considered part of the land. Anything that is immovable and attached to the land on a fixed manner is part of the land. Okay, so the plant and machinery available on that particular piece of land, how you are going to find out the fair valuation of the barrel plant, the ability of the palm oil, the rubber trees, or even the durian trees, the ability of these trees to produce the output, to produce the fruits. We are going to calculate them under FFB, fresh fruit per bunch. Fresh fruit per bunch. Their economic life, if it's a 5-year-old oil palm tree as compared to a 20 years old oil palm tree, is it who is going to be much more higher, having a higher economic life? So which one is the which one is doesn't have the proper economic life anymore, that should be cut down. So this is also our scope of valuation that we need to find out the value bit. Okay, so you can refer through all of this, how we are going to find out, like using income approach to find out what is the economic benefit, the assistance, the biological attributes of the assets. Okay. Okay, so that is regarding biological assets. So for standard 12, valuation for financing purposes. So this is the one that is we conduct the most, especially for private valuers, because for financial institutions, when they want to give out loans, like housing loans or property loan, so they need to have a document that states that if anything happens towards that property, if the borrower defaults on their payment, then they can at least gather back some of the uh, money that they have given towards the borrower, that they have give to them. So at least they can get back the capital money together with the interest and administration fee to recoup back their investment towards the loan. Okay, so let's say if a property, let's say a property borrower defaults on his installment, for 6 months due to COVID-19, and the moratorium has already been used. All of the limit have been used. So there is no other choice but the financial institution have to foreclose the property, and then they have to auction off the property. So uh, this is the way. This is the way that we are going to help them. If we conduct evaluation, previously we conduct evaluation, we already find out that the market value is 500,000 ringgit, and then the forced sale value is going to be 450,000 ringgit. So that particular forced sale value, 450,000 ringgit, will be used as the basis for reserve price for the auction, so that the financial institution at least the minimum they can get from the property is the 450,000 ringgit, not the 500,000 ringgit. So at that particular time, the borrower might already have paid 20 or 30% of his or her loan, and then at least the financial institution can get everything back. Can get every cent or every penny from the amount that is being given to the borrower. And then if the property is being auctioned, there is a surplus amount of money, like the financial institution only have to obtain 300,000 ringgit from the remaining loan, and then the property is being auctioned at 500,000 ringgit. So the borrower will be given the 200,000 ringgit, and then the bank or the financial institution will just take 300,000. So that is the common method that we conduct in the practice or even in the industry. Okay. All right. I think that is about it for today. So in the next lecture, we are going to cover the remaining standards, which is remaining standard of 13 until to 19. So today we have already covered standard 5 until standard 12. So if you have any questions, so of course you can do contact me. You can contact me for any queries or information afterwards. So with that, I will end the session with wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.